Cool.
We're going to find out.
We're going to find out.
She said she'd do it. She did
Yeah.
something wow.
Exactly. That's right. Picky. So again, I'm going to do the same thing I did yesterday. I'm just going to draw it right here on the floor. So if you can't see, move to somewhere where you can. Feel free to put your chair in. And the same thing as yesterday, you know, please don't confuse the map with the landscape. It's just another map. So this one, we want to throw out there because one, we think it's helpful in terms of understanding the experience we're in here. But like what we're throwing down on the floor here is it's like the most basic architecture that we use for the design of anything that involves participation, of anything that involves getting something new done. It's like the most simple piece of design architecture we have for designing good meetings, for designing good conversations, for build relationships to get different quality of results. Right? Simple as that. So, things kick off. Someone has a question. There's a meeting around something. There's like, how do we actually build a meaningful and productive workplace? Not just in pockets in this division, but across the whole division. How do we do that? That's the question. That's what's got us all together. It's why we're here. Right? Yeah? There's something that brings people together. People come together, and this, in my experience, stands for a 1-hour meeting, it stands for a 2.5-day session, it stands for a 3-year planning. Same pattern, every single time. Right? It's not even that we're in control of it. So we might as well notice it so we can work with it. People get together, and the first piece, you know, people start exploring questions, and they have ideas, and they meet new people, or they meet old friends, and it feels great, and we begin to start generating some sense of like positivity and possibility, and that all begins to feel really good. We have a couple of beers together, or whatever else, we sit around a fire, we actually get some, I got like the most sleep I've had for ages last night. I got little kids, I got like, I think 6 hours in a row. It's like unprecedented with an 18-month-old. So, like good things happen, right? When you first get in the room, like these first meetings, there's some level of like divergence, of exploration, of questions, of understanding, of meeting people, right? But then you hit a point where actually, initially the learning feels really fun, right? It's kind of exciting. But then it hits a point where it's demanding that you change how you behave. It's demanding that you change how you think. The person who you met for the first time at the beginning of the meeting, halfway through you're like, you think that? Oh, right? Like you actually start being stretched. You things begin to get uncomfortable because it's not just about learning something cool and funky. It's actually demanding something inside you, or something about how you turn up, or something about how you operate has to change. Yeah? And
if you're ever involved, probably been involved with strategic planning, the first part of strategic planning, generate whole bunches of ideas, and then all of a sudden we know we're going to have to make decisions. We've got 100 things here, we're going to be able to do 3. We got to do 3.
right. Yeah? And so we talk about this area as the grown zone. Talk about this as the grown zone. And so like often if you're running these kind of events like Phil and I do, or longer term strategic things, this is when people are like, man, the beds are hard. Oh, the catering's not good. Oh, the facilitation's crap. Or whatever else it might be. But what's happening is people are getting stretched. They're getting uncomfortable. The conditions that they're in are forcing them to learn. Yeah? And I want to be crystal clear that the amount of time that we can stay in the uncomfort without popping into crisis, right? Because when you're in crisis, you don't learn anything. You just want to get the hell out of that. And even if you're in the room in body, you're not really present, right? Like the longer we can stay in uncomfort, the more possibility there is that we'll come out with something new. Right? The longer we can be in the uncertainty, the more possibilities that we'll come out with something new.
And I gave the example yesterday, the move. Everybody ended up, new building, it's really cool. We're going to move in a new building. And people were excited. And then we got there, it's like, oh shit. This is not good. There's stuff, there's rules, there's things. And we were miserable. And if I had shut it down and taken it and diverged it quickly and said, this is the way things are going to be, we would have never settled into a culture that everybody owned. So I had to stay in the grown zone. No, it's okay to be uncomfortable for a couple days, and we can figure this out together. And it was uncomfortable. People listening and moaning at each other, and then we finally converged it, and it was converged at the right time, and there's a sense of ownership. But if I had stopped it too short, no one would have owned it.
Right. And so the quicker we rush to solution, yeah, the smaller the amount of innovation, the smaller amount of newness we're going to get. Simple as that. So like you get into a meeting, you throw around some ideas, someone says, let's do that one, and then you jump straight into action, like teeny tiny bit of innovation. Because all you've heard is one idea. No one's got uncomfortable. Everyone's just jumped on one thing because they're so desperate to take action. Yeah, it happens all the time. Right? And then we wonder why we're getting the same old results. It's because we're doing the same old thing and we're not being brave enough to actually explore a diversity of options, a diversity of opinions, and a diversity of ways of doing things. Yeah? We've got to get out of what we know if we want to do something differently. Simple as that. And the longer we can stay in what we don't know, the more possibilities we'll find something that's fundamentally different, as opposed to just a nice little incremental tweak. Yeah? But there comes a point when being in this kind of like groany uncertainty is just unbearable and also not particularly practical, because ultimately we have to go home at the end of the day tomorrow. Right? Where you start making decisions. You build action plans. People take responsibility. Right? Clarity. Inevitably. Right? And like, you know, I've been in meetings that have, they've done this, they've done really exploratory, very exciting, you know, and then people end up leaving when they're stretched, you know. But what happens is that all of this convergence happens down the pub, happens down the water cooler, happens around the kitchen table with your family. People draw their assumptions, they draw their conclusions, and they make their decisions about what they're going to do outside of the container within which they're doing the work. Right? So a well-designed meeting does all of this, because all of it's going to happen anyway. So whether you've got an hour, or whether you've got 2.5 days, or whether you've got a 6-year strategic plan, it's going to move through this pattern, whether you like it or not. So better to have some kind of convergence, some kind of building clarity while we're all in the room, yeah, than to let it happen in places where there's no control, no influence. There's no good container for people to reach clarity together. Right? Does it make sense? Silence.
Yes.
About 5, 10.
Huh? 5? Good. So we use this to design everything. We use this to design the afternoon session we did down here, and you know, 6 weeks ago, whatever it was. We're using this to design these 3 days. We use this to design the kind of 4.5-year piece of work we did with Nova Scotia Public Health. It's a basic pattern that you move through in terms of the design of any kind of intervention. Yeah? So there's some pieces, there's some things that run through this. It's almost like some basic behaviors that allow you to navigate this. If we want to create something new, we're going to have to travel through the growing zone, we're going to have to be able to explore, and we're going to have to be able to reach clarity. Right? So, there's some basic piece around like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to deal with a diversity of opinions, many of which are going to be different, and many of which are going to be in conflict with my own, if I can't keep my own shit together. Right? Like if I'm constantly knocked off my seat by the fact that someone's saying something that I don't agree with, yeah, there's no way I can stay in the conversation because I'm just freaked out the whole time. Yeah? So what is it that you do in your life that keeps you centered and keeps you grounded and keeps you sane? If you're wanting to create something new, you're going to need some kind of personal practice that keeps you grounded. Yeah? That could be yoga, that could be running, that could be, I got a buddy in, I'll say yesterday, I got a buddy in the Netherlands. He goes every single morning for 5 minutes, he goes on his back deck and he has a cigarette. His family never interrupts him, right? It's just like, that's his time. And he's like, if that time was taken away from me, I think I'd go crazy thing, right? But like, that's what he does. That's where he finds his ground every single day. Never doesn't do it, you know? So what is it that you do to keep your center and keep your ground? I was working down in I was working, when we set up the youth centre in Yarmouth, we had 5 young people there, and I brought a fella in to teach them meditation, and they were tough kids. And they tore him to pieces. He was meant to be there for 2 days, but at the end of by lunchtime on the first day, he was leaving very upset, because the kids were just, what is this guy trying to make it, sitting on cushions in silence? Whatever. And so they just like tore him to pieces, and yeah, it was horrible for him, and for the kids actually. And so I sat down with the kids, when we were sitting around the fire, and I was like, I'm really sorry, bad choice on my part, but this thing about like being able to keep your cool when things are going crazy around you and things are unpredictable is important to me. How are we going to deal with that? We've got 6 months together in this program, how are we going to deal with it? And then one of the kids, so I was like, what do you do when things go crazy? You know, and then one of the kids eventually was like, okay, I go fishing. I was like, all right, nice. And then one of the other lads was like, I work out. One of the girls was like, I listen to music. 2 of the others was like, I take walks in nature. Brilliant. So every single day for that 6-month program, one day we went fishing in the morning for half an hour, another day we did a workout. The kid would come in with a workout plan for us. 2 days we went for a walk in nature, and one day we all brought tunes in and listened to music. But it was like training ourselves to hold our centre in chaos, because it's going to be part of creating any kind of change. And for those kids, they were changing their whole lives. Yeah. All right, host yourself. Have good questions. Don't rush to answers. It's questions that are going to get you to where you want to go. Einstein said something like, if I had an hour, I would use 59 minutes to come up with the right questions and 1 minute to actually work on the answer. I don't know, it's not a direct quote, but it's something like that. Right? Is it close? Yeah, you know it, right?
Oh yeah, I used to teach it.
Yeah, there we go, see? So, we got to have good questions, right? It's asking good questions that are going to lead us to answers. The quicker you rush the solution, yeah, the less opportunity there is to innovate. And so questions can take us into what are we willing to take responsibility for? What are the actions that we're willing, what do we care about enough to take action on? Yeah? Where does my personal willpower, the part of me that doesn't doubt or hesitate, yeah? Where's that going to step up and make something happen? Right? Have good questions. And then the last one I would say is, if you're going to be doing this type of work, have some kind of methodology. Have something that creates the conditions for all the different perspectives to be heard. It's so unusual, I think, in terms of how we run meetings, that all the different perspectives get heard, that we have to have some kind of methodology that supports it, that enables it. So here, with Phil, we've been doing this, so everyone goes around and we get heard. I do that at the beginning of every single meeting that I run now. It doesn't matter whether I'm working with senior corporate leaders or whether I'm working with grassroots kids. Before I start every single meeting, we go around and all the perspectives are heard.
Our boardroom, we built a new boardroom in the new building. It's built in the round.
Yeah? It changes the quality of the meeting. What is the methodology you're using to making sure all the different perspectives get heard? Simple as that. It doesn't have to be complicated. You know, it can take 2 minutes. What's most important for you on the agenda, for you to cover off on the agenda today? Boom, 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 boom. Right? But it changes the quality of the meeting because there isn't one person at the front running Robert's rules of hell. Right?
Which tends to reinforce the hierarchy.
Which reinforces the hierarchy and reinforces control and therefore kills us coming up with anything new because none of the perspectives get to engage with each other and figure out something that none of us could figure out alone. We are faced with challenges in this division, in this sector, in the industries you are working within, yeah, that are beyond the ability of any single individual to find answers to. We have to figure out how to come together from multiple different perspectives, yeah, and come up with solutions that none of us could come up with alone. I know, I'm doing work with the Aquaculture Association in Nova Scotia as well. Right? There's no doubt. None of us have got the answer. We've got to find ways to be able to do this together. And when multiple perspectives come together that don't agree, it gets uncomfortable. And we've got to find a way of staying in. What's your personal practice? Have some good questions. Have a simple methodology that allows everybody to get heard. That'll give you just enough to get through it. Yeah?